A lot of Fallout 76 players are upset, and for a good reason, honestly. I had no idea how many players were upset about this update that's going to be coming March 18th, where we'll be able to turn into a ghoul, until I made a few videos over the ghoul. And then I started realizing from the comments, yeah, the majority of the players are not in favor of this update we're about to be getting. I mean, there are positives over this update, don't get me wrong. I'll be getting into those as well, but first I'm going to get into the cons and what's making the players upset. First off, how the Ghoul is becoming something that's going to involve the Atomic Shop as well, so money. This is coming from Bethesda themselves. We're going to be able to spend our atoms to change back to a ghoul or back to a human. We get one freebie to use to turn back into a human if we don't like being a ghoul, which I like the free option. Also like how Bethesda is making this more of a permanent choice in a way, but at the same time, it's not. It's going to cost now money. Well, atoms, but basically, atoms are like using real money to turn back into a human to a ghoul. And obviously, yeah, that's not such a great thing. It seems a little bit money hungry in a way, and I don't really think Bethesda's lacking in the money department, seeing how many Fallout First members there are and how many players actually purchase from the Atomic Shop. And as we know, those aren't cheap, especially the Atomic Shop. They overprice quite a bit of stuff in there, to be real with you guys. I think money is solid for them right now, but they see an opportunity to make even more money from this Ghoul update. Even though for the most part, if you purchase 4 different things in the Atomic Shop, that's pretty much the equivalent of a brand new $60 plus game. It's kind of crazy. A lot of things in the shop cost 1,500 atoms and up, and 1,500 atoms is equivalent to $15. I will say, for those of you wondering, if I do the quest line, do I have to turn into a ghoul? And the answer to that is no. You do have a choice on whether you want to or not when you go through the quest line, so keep that in mind. You do have a choice. You don't have to technically turn into a ghoul after doing this new quest line, so that's a plus. At least you get to experience this new content without being forced to turn into something that you may not want to turn into. And if you change your mind later, you do get one freebie to turn into a ghoul or turn back into a human, like I mentioned before. But after that, it's going to cost atoms. On that note, though, over how it is going to cost atoms, some people are thinking possibly the fact they are tying ghoulification to atoms, as you can see here, means it's probably going to go through a series of nerfs and buffs very consistently to encourage people to change constantly. Which this person had a great point, and this comment had 27 replies, and a lot of them were agreeing with this guy. Let alone this comment had 363 likes. So that's a lot of people agreeing with this guy. I mean, wow, Like, I don't know. I started realizing that, a lot of players aren't in favor, because I did make another video saying why you want to turn into a ghoul and stuff, and yeah, people were just not in favor of that. Like I mentioned before, there are some positives out of turning into a ghoul. You are going to get extremely powerful, but there's quite a bit of negatives too, which brings me more into that. The next thing is the disguise. How you get this disguise is by talking to a specific character named J-Vo, which this person's in like the new ghoul headquarters or whatever. And then that's how you get the disguise on. And the reason why we need this disguise is because pretty much none of the factions are able to communicate with us. Some of you may be thinking, well, I don't care about that. I've already completed the story long ago. I've already completed all those stories. They're no problem. Well, some of you may have not maxed out Settlers or Raiders' reputation. And as some of you may know, doing the dailies to increase your reputation to get those maxed, you are going to have to be wearing a disguise. And the disguise comes with quite a bit of negatives. As you can see here, for example. First off, let alone to even take off the disguise, you have to go back to J-Vo and have it removed from you. So this is going to be a back and forth kind of thing. So you may be thinking, well, what if I just wear something that covers my face, or I wear power armor or something? Nope, that doesn't work as a disguise. You have to literally get this disguise from this specific character from the Ghoul headquarters. And it's not in your inventory where you can just simply take off. No, you have to literally travel all the way back to J-Vo and have it removed. Going through even more loading screens to just get the disguise off or on. Seems pretty tedious. So yeah, and like I mentioned before, the disguise comes with quite a bit of negatives. As you see here, this is coming straight from the Fallout Wiki source over the Ghoul, and also discusses what quest lines aren't available. And by the way, there's no unique dialogue over becoming a Ghoul either. I tested it out with all of the different factions, and yeah, none of them even recognized we turned into a Ghoul. it's kind of ironic because I was talking to like the Brotherhood of Steel members outside of the Brotherhood of Steel headquarters, and they were just fine with me. You know, they were talking to me like I was A-okay, but when I went to try to go into the headquarters, it states the Brotherhood of Steel is distrustful of ghouls. But yeah, that's besides the point. That's just something just kind of odd and very immersive breaking in a way. But also here, as you can see, it states, while wearing the disguise, ghouls will have the following penalties. Sprinting will cost 50% more action points, so you're going to run out of action points faster, and you're going to be getting around slower than usual because your action points will run out faster, which, you know, running requires action points. Also, the Ferrometer depletion rate is increased by 30. So now, if you want to keep your Ferrometer up, well, it's going to take a bit more chems to keep your Ferrometer up, which I'll get more into the Ferrometer further in this video. But as you can see also, the movement speed is slightly slower. So yeah, your action points are draining faster to make you slower, and also your movement speed is slower too. And you can get something called super over encumbrance. Drastic action point drain and forced slow walk. So yeah, you're not going to be doing some like a little slow jog when you're over encumbered like you normally could. You're going to be like barely walking with the super over encumbrance while you're wearing this disguise. And by the way, here are all of the quest lines that you have to wear a disguise for in order to do them. The Enclave with Modus. Yeah, the Wayward. I just thought this was kind of strange because literally inside the Wayward, one of the main characters is a freaking ghoul sitting right there at the bar. Anyways, carrying on here. The Vault 76 Overseer. Raiders, which also is kind of weird because ghouls are all over in Crater. And not to mention a ghoul is in the higher ranking too. Anyways, carrying on here, we got the Settlers. And same thing. There's a ghoul in the higher rankings at Foundation with the Settlers. And they have ghouls walking around. And also, the Settlers are known for accepting everybody. You know, they're very welcoming. That's what they're known for. They help give people a home. And not to mention, there's dialogue that you can get from the Settler Guard that states, "Welcome to Foundation. Treat everyone like your best friend," or something like that.
Welcome to Foundation. Your weapons holstered and treat everyone like they were your best friend.
You like the big
So they're supposed to be getting along with everyone. Anyways, carrying on here, the Secret Service is not going to be available unless you're wearing a disguise. You're not going to be able to interact or do anything with the Secret Service. Also the Brotherhood of Steel too, which this makes sense, and so does the Enclave. But like everything else doesn't at all. And you know, I can understand why there's no like unique interaction or dialogue that I've found so far, at least. And the reason why is because they would have to hire back on those voice actors and get them to say unique dialogue and stuff, which, you know, that kind of makes sense and seems like it'd be a bit more time consuming. But at the same time, it also makes it seem like they rushed this update too. I mean, they didn't take the time to make these unique dialogue lines and stuff. I don't know. I'm like in between with that. I can understand, but at the same time, I don't really think money is a problem with Bethesda. I just think they wanted to rush this, and that's what they did. They just made a text pop up appear when you go to try to go into these places, stating that you're not allowed. Kind of seems like a lazy route, just being real once again. And some of you may be thinking, well, it does sometimes state unfamiliar ghouls. What if you're already familiar with them and you got like a high ranking with them? Nope. Still the same answer. Now, like I mentioned before, I can understand why they didn't want to rehire everyone. That would be time consuming and costly too. But getting like the extras, like the Brotherhood of Steel NPCs that you see outside of the Brotherhood of Steel headquarters, honestly, I don't think that would be as costly or time consuming to get like the extras. That'd make it feel more immersive, like you're not welcomed here and stuff like that to the ghoul, instead of nothing unique happening. But yeah, on the note of this disguise, as you can see here, some of the top comments, once again, 329 likes here. Having a high reputation with the faction should remove the requirement to wear a disguise, in my opinion. Completely agree with this. As well as this comment here, 121 likes on this. In the Wayward sits a ghoul. The Raider Demolition Expert is a ghoul. Ghouls live in Foundation regularly. Secret Service has a ghoul. Minerva's Bodyguard is a ghoul. Did I miss something, Bethesda? 121 likes, so 121 people agreed with this comment too. So a lot of players are in favor of these complaints, and I feel like they're important to talk about because this is what we're going to be getting in the future. Here's another comment with 268 likes. So 268 people agree with this guy. The factions not wanting to deal with you makes no sense. Unless they are going to remove all the ghouls in the Settlers and Raiders. If that doesn't happen, the disguise makes no sense. Anyways, here's another comment. Completely agree with this person too. It's a bit odd to require us to wear the disguise when we have a plethora of masks, helmets, and headgear we can wear. Did they add in new factions for us to interact with to replace the ones we lose? It seems like they really don't want us to play a Ghoul, since it locks out a ton of the game. And I know some of you may be thinking, well, Ghoul is meant for just in-game players and in-game content, which, that does seem like the case, honestly, here. But at the same time, getting the Settlers and Raiders reputation to max takes forever. Even if you're already an in-game player, you may not have those maxed out. Now they're going to be more of an issue because you're going to have to get a disguise on every time to do some of the dailies to increase your reputation. Like, for instance, that robot that you have to speak to in the Overseer's home, the camera quest daily, that'll help increase your, reputation. Yeah, you're going to have to wear a disguise every time you go and do that. And then go back and take off your disguise to become a Ghoul again so you don't get those negative effects. Also, there's some players thinking that they suspect there will be Atom skins for the Ghoul disguise because of how lame it looks. You don't get like this whole crazy good looking unique disguise. Yeah, you just get a bag over your head. It looks kind of like a Raider disguise, but it's not just meant for specifically Raiders. It's meant for your disguise in general with all quest lines. So yeah, those are just some of the negatives. Also, for those of you wondering about mutations, keep in mind the adrenal reaction isn't going to be working because full health is a very big deal with the Ghoul. That's how you get the glow effect as the Ghoul, which the glow effect is used for the new Ghoul perk cards. So the adrenal reaction and bloody builds are out the window now. If that was your thing, well, it's not going to be your thing as a Ghoul. You're now going to have to be doing full health style to get the most bang for your buck, I should say. As you can see, this player made a great point here. As a Ghoul, you lose access to bloodied, overeaters, unyielding effects, which you get plus 15 strength from having 5 pieces of unyielding on, as well as 75% melee damage, plus 150% unarmed damage. Overall, unyielding has a ton of benefits and synergies, so losing that really hurts Ghouls. You also lose effect use of adrenal reaction mutation, which can give you plus 63% damage when below 20% health with Strange in Numbers perk card on. And you also lose Nerd Rage too, which gives you plus 20% extra damage. And as a feral Ghoul, you also can't use chems like Psycho Buff and stuff like that will increase your damage even more. I'll get more into the feral here in a bit. As you can see, there's a ton of damage buffs that feral Ghouls lose out on. I wouldn't be surprised if bloodied humans still outperform Ghouls in every single metric, including melee damage. Feral used to be plus 300% melee unarmed damage at first, but it got nerfed down to plus 150% on the PTS. The strength buff alone from unyielding rivals that for unarmed builds. This person had a great point. And it's true. Actually, here's a little bit about the mutations as a Ghoul. Ghouls can still have mutations, but they cannot gain a mutation by extreme radiation exposure, and Ghouls can still acquire mutations through the use of serums. However, they can still remove mutations with Radaway and decontamination arches like normal. So it is recommended to use starch genes still, even as a Ghoul. And due to the nature of Ghouls, some mutations may not be as beneficial and even more detrimental than going without it. Plague Walker, for instance, serves no purpose as Ghouls cannot get diseases, as well as adrenal reaction and stuff like that. Now, let me go ahead and get into the feral meter. The feral meter is this new feature that's coming with the Ghouls, and how you keep this up is by taking chems. That's how you keep your feral meter up. However, to get the real bang for your buck from using the Ghoul is by having it at 0%. Most Ghouls are going to be melee. They're going to be using auto axes and stuff like that. They are going to be melee. I can tell you that right now. Most Ghouls will be using melee due to a lot of the Ghoul perk cards and the buffs that you get. As you can see, if you have the feral meter at 0%, it'll give you plus 150% melee damage. However, it'll give you negative 5 endurance, negative 99 charisma, negative 30 max hit points, negative 30 max action points, and negative 300% hip fire and VATS accuracy. So yeah, your accuracy is out the window. But obviously, if you're having your feral meter at 0%, you're going to be using melee, because that's how you get the good buff in. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, what if I keep my feral meter higher? Well, what's the benefit out of that? First off, you're going to be able to use guns still, and also, if you have it above 75%, as you see here, you'll get plus 3 strength, plus 3 endurance, and plus 30 max hit points. And also there's some Ghoul perk cards that go with the feral meter too, but nothing too beneficial. So yeah. And for those of you wondering how fast does this feral meter decay, As you can see here, it states the feral meter decays at a rate of roughly 1% for every 2 minutes of real world time while in game. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to be stocked up on chems and keep using them to keep your feral meter up if that's the kind of play style you want to go with while being a ghoul. But yeah, that's just a few of the cons over, becoming a ghoul. It is something that will drastically affect your play style. And there's also this new mechanic coming in called Onslaught, and it's going to benefit players tremendously. In case you don't know about the Onslaught, and keep in mind this works for non-ghoul characters as well as for ghoul characters too, but most people that are playing as ghouls aren't going to be using guns. The keyword is most. But yeah, if you don't know much about the Onslaught effect, as you can see here, by default, stacks of Onslaught can be gained by consecutive hits on enemies. Gain stacks do not stay forever and expire at the rate of 1 stack per second. The current number of stacks is indicated by this icon on the bottom right corner of the screen. Stacks can be gained until a max stack cap is reached. Once the max stat is reached, further hits on the same enemy will not increase stacks. The max stack count can be adjusted by using perks and items. Multi-projectile weapons like shotguns gain stacks per each projectile hit. Reflect and deflect effects also increase stacks. So yeah, this new Onslaught stack effect that'll be coming with this update as well is really effective. There will be a lot of perk cards that are going to be changed up that'll add the Onslaught effect, and the Furious effect too is going to have the Onslaught effect. For example, the Gunslinger Expert and the Furious Legendary effect combined have a max Onslaught stack of 12, and they provide 5% damage and plus 3% fire rate per stack. And here are the perk cards and effects that will give you more damage with the stacks. The only one that will help you with Onslaught stack for melee is the Pounder's Legendary effect. This is for melee weapons only, but for the most part, this is going to be with ranged weapons, which is a big bonus. So yeah, this is something to definitely keep in mind. This new Onslaught mechanic is going to help ranged players quite a bit, especially if you're not a ghoul. One more thing that I'm going to mention as a con here that players aren't happy about. As you can see here, ghouls will have a hard time interacting with NPCs through Appalachia, which I already covered, but also by default, all ghouls have a -10 penalty to their charisma. And this will affect any perks reliant on charisma score, such as inspirational. Also, if you become feral, like I also mentioned before, you're going to get a -99 charisma hit too. And as you know, charisma is used for quite a bit with builds, so keep that in mind. Charisma is going to go out the window as well when you become a ghoul. Now, since I talked about a lot of cons, now I just want to get into some constructive criticism that could help Bethesda. Obviously, this is something that players are upset with, and here are some ideas that I think, and as well as some players that commented, think that could help this Ghoul update be better and less players be upset about it. First off, the disguise. If they just lessened a bit of the debuffs and make it so we could, have our own disguise instead of having to use Javo and go back and forth with her, that would make things better. Another thing that I've seen some players talk about that would be good, instead of, having to spend our atoms on being able to turn back into a ghoul or turn back into a human or something, they were saying for us to be able to earn these free passes from seasons, so we don't have to necessarily spend atoms to transform back. Okay, now for the pros about becoming a ghoul. You're going to become really powerful with melee damage at full health, which is pretty rare. And also, you're going to have an extra health bar pretty much, and that's called the glow that you'll have. This is what you get once you reach full hit points and then get radiation. You'll start to get this glow bar going over your regular health bar. And this acts as an extra health bar, and it acts as power for certain perk cards. Like for this one, for example, this is one of the best perk cards for the ghoul. As you can see here, if you have this maxed out, you expend a moderate amount of glow to deal 150% more damage with power attacks and bashing. So you're going to be dealing out some serious damage with melee. If you top this off with the other 150% damage that you can get from having your feral meter at 0%. So if you're looking for a full health melee build, you definitely want to consider transforming into a ghoul because you can get really powerful. There's some other pretty good perk cards, like here for example, this is United Ordeal. While on a team with another ghoul, you gain +3 to all special. And for those of you wondering, can you use regular perk cards and mix them with ghoul perk cards? Yes, you can do that as well. This is also a really good ghoul perk card. There's only 2 legendary ghoul perk cards that come with the ghoul, and this is the best one out of them in my opinion. It's called Feral Rage. As you can see here, it states when feral, all glow perk abilities cost 50% less glow. So that makes it so you won't have to spend as much glow to use these special perk cards to, get more powerful, to have more powerful attacks and stuff. So yeah, here's another perk card for one more example. This one's called Thick Skin. You take significantly less damage from ballistic attacks if you have this maxed out. So that's a plus too. You are going to become a powerful melee build with stacking the right Ghoul perk cards. There's 30 new Ghoul perk cards, which I covered all of those in a previous video. If you're curious about all of the new Ghoul perk cards, I'll have a link down below in the description to that video. But yeah, I'm not covering all those in this video. I'm just going over this as a pro. You are going to be able to make a new play style as a Ghoul, and you can become really powerful. But on the other hand, you can become just as powerful being not a Ghoul, especially with the new onslaught mechanic that is coming with this update too. Also, another plus is if you're just wanting to switch up your whole game style and just experience the game in a whole new way, becoming a Ghoul will get you to have that experience. So that's another plus, I guess, in a sense too. And also another plus is you'll be able to just run around in the nuke zone and not have to worry about radiation whatsoever. Radiation literally heals you now. So yeah, that's some of the pros about becoming a Ghoul.